and welcome to episode 5 of this lockdown series. Today's episode I'm going to talk you through an ongoing project which I shot last summer when me and a friend went to Taipei and travelled from the north of Vietnam down towards the south. So over the course of this trip I shot 9 rolls of 35mm Colour Plus. So I'm going to take a load of individual images and start to edit them down, start to pair them based on various links to do with visual associations as well as ideas behind them to try and build up a bigger concept for this overall work and share some of my initial thoughts about how this might turn out. Prior to filming, I went through all the photos and grouped them into 5 smaller subsections. So the first subsection of people were the kind of individuals and small groups that I strongly remembered. So these would be more intimate portraits, perhaps ones I'd asked permission for, people we bumped into in smaller villages that we spoke to and interacted with. So these were a bit more of the, don't want to say personal ones, but just more intimate photographs that for me were the stronger ones of the people. Second is again a subsection of people, this time tourists and just other general. So this is a smaller group of photographs mostly focused on, other tourists, people there for the same reason as me, things of that nature, just they don't necessarily fall into any other category. So again, subsection of people, this time locals and workers. Mostly around the street context, working people, a lot of people doing quite manual labour on the streets, selling things on stalls that they had attached to like motorbikes and stuff like that. And again, some children playing, again coming back to this idea of me as a kind of outsider, looking in on these people's, everyday lives. So next is land, so these are just general views and cities / streets. Just natural occurrences in the streets that aren't so much to do with people, but of kind of humans' interaction with nature. So various things, plants and buildings and some more typical landscape views, observations of different houses and things of that nature. And the last are objects, specifically vernacular things, kind of everyday stuff that you would pass. So like monuments, a lost photograph that's next to a tree, bike coverings for the heat, people's lunches attached to trees, just kind of random things that caught my eye. So after splitting them into 5 sections, it's a lot easier to go through and work with them and to kind of cross-reference things and know where to look if you want to find a certain photo. So with those I started to just lay out, try and find pairs initially to start with. I initially was thinking quite a lot about the relation between locals and me as a tourist kind of passing through, being someone not involved at all with what's going on. You're interacting with it for a second and then passing through. There's quite strong feelings for me in some of the objects I was taking photographs of, these ambiguities that I couldn't quite understand, so I'd make a picture of them to try and confront later on. This photograph was interesting. Some photographs I've wrote notes over, quite detailed notes of just how I remember. At what must have been around 4 AM, the door to her room is carefully opened and in silence the figure of a small, thin and tired looking young woman enters. She climbs atop the bunk opposing me and says nothing. In the morning I notice all of her belongings in a bucket tucked into a hidden corner of the roof. I took this photo and then it was time to leave. So this was quite more of a negative picture I think in my mind. The memories I have to this aren't the nicest because you couldn't help but think, what is this person's situation? It was quite, I wouldn't go as far as shocking, but it was quite unnerving. This one for me stands out. These 2 photographs perhaps could pair. There's not much visual relations, but to me it ties to this one because there's this tension between this, you've got this pulling each side of this pole and it leads off to nowhere. You don't really know what's being blocked off. And again, to pair this one with this and then have this text to give this context, I think these are a good fit. So I'm going to go with these as a pair. So it's been a few days since that initial pair was formed. I'm just going to talk through some of the other pairs that I actually got done. So the first one was starting with this big tree. This was a huge tree I found in Hanoi. Yeah, very, very intricate kind of webbing of these branches. Clearly very old, they'd been growing there. I wouldn't know how to guess, but a long time. I was looking for some sort of opposite for this one. This was natural, you know, there wasn't much human touch to it. It had been built around, it had been kind of preserved almost in its place. And in Asia there's like a huge abundance of these crazy wires. Telephone poles are very densely packed with wires just because of how dense the city is, how much electricity has to be fed to all these separate buildings. So there was many photos like these ones, electrical boxes overflowing with wires to the point where it looks as if it would be broken. It's kind of mad how they still work and function. But again, I thought there was a very strong visual relation between this webbing of almost wire-like roots, I suppose. And I liked the fact that it was, you know, one was natural, one was very much man-made. One related heavily to city and infrastructure, whereas this tree was just, you know, this is just a natural ongoing thing. So yeah, I really like these two as a pair. The next was two from Taipei. It was nice because these were taken in the same day. So I first started with this one. It was this man bent over unloading something from his truck, and you see this sign covering his face, and it almost looks like some sort of face, almost like it's blocking out his face, and you have this pink ribbon stuff acting as hair. So I thought this one had a slight bit of humour, I suppose, to it, if you could see it in that way. It's not like a serious image, and it was just very simple this time, basing on the idea of, you know, covered face. Shortly after taking that photograph, we were heading to the CKS. This lady's umbrella was just very interesting colour. The way it kind of radiated the sun off the back gave this kind of sheen to it, this purple sheen. So I photographed these two. I think in the early stages that I am currently, these two go together nicely. They're not saying too much, they're quite a playful pairing, but as individual photographs I do like these for their colours, for the subject matter. So yeah, these are a little bit of a lighter pair that could be worked into the overall sequence somewhere, you know, it wouldn't add too much, but it also wouldn't take away too much. So some photographs I didn't actually pair with anything. So this is a single photograph just with text. This is an example of something I feel that kind of speaks for itself. It doesn't need to be paired with another photo. This was a very strong photograph in terms of the feelings it gave me while taking it. I felt bad taking it as much as I felt inclined to record it. So the writing goes, after wandering around the Ho Chi Minh War Museum, shocked at the documentation of the atrocities of war, especially the gas attacks, you left through a small room with a blind man playing piano. Not just blind, but completely eyeless, born into darkness. It was obvious the connection. This man's entire life had been affected by what I had just seen, a cause and its brutal effect. This was in the War Museum. You've just seen some of the worst photographs I suspect you could ever see, and then you leave through this door and this man is sitting there for charity playing this piano. It was one of those kind of overwhelming moments. You feel it kind of stops you in your path because of how hard it hits. You need to think about your kind of own personal code of ethics and what you see is ethically right or wrong when it comes to what you make pictures of. I think the feeling bad was the fact that this man had no idea his appearance was being taken. But again, this was something I had so much respect in that moment, and I felt so shocked, and yeah, it was too strong a feeling to not photograph and to show. And I hope that when people see that, they can feel that, and they don't look at it as something negative or immoral. You're going to take some photographs like this, it doesn't need to be paired at all, you know, it speaks for itself. I think I'll just be pairing this with the text, and that's an example of one that doesn't need to necessarily be paired. So I'm going to end this video here. I've still got a lot of work to do. I want to work up pairing sequences and then building those on to form triplets or quadruples, and then again forming those up together to actually get into a kind of book order. I hope seeing some of the reasons behind how I pair, I hope it's been entertaining or useful in some way. And yeah, that's episode 5 over. So thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay inside, stay safe, and if you're in England, stay alert. See you next week.